How you doing? Anthony Ferraro here of Create Sci-Fi. Today I'm going to dive right in, and I want to talk about how to make your series or film dream a reality, right? I mean, the biggest obstacle is money, right? So I've been working for the past few years with something that I've come to call the momentum budget. This is definitely a DIY approach. As I say with a lot of tutorials and things I share on this channel, that this is not a master class, right? I'm not teaching you this is how you would do things in the industry, or, you know, this is how you would go about getting a position by following these steps, or this is the industry standard. Everything I do is DIY, right? So what my thrust is, what my goal is, and what I want to share with you is you have an idea and you want to make it, right? That's all I ever really do on this channel, is show you how to realize your ideas. So as I said, I work with something I call a momentum budget. It's not pretty. It's easy. It's not easy mentally, but it's very, very doable. And by just setting a series of goals, you can make your film, right? So what is a momentum budget? A momentum budget is simply committing to a series of goals. The process begins with very basic goals that cost your time. Next, you commit to a series of goals that require collaboration. Then, when you create goals that require funding, they will be locked into the momentum of those initial time-funded goals. And then finally, you'll set goals for the completion of the project. So to keep things simple, I break this down to 4 phases, and they're a little rhymey, but I think that helps. There's the free phase, which is the time investment, the friend phase, which is where you gather your collaborators, the finance phase, the budget realities, and then the finish phase, which is the hard deadlines. The 4 F's, right? I know that's corny, but you can remember that, right? Free, friends, finance, finish, right? Those are the steps. I mean, these kind of things work, right? I know they're corny, but we're trying to make a film with no money, so you got to do what you got to do. All right, so first phase is the free phase, and that's the phase that will only cost your time, and that's probably where you'll spend the most time, but you gotta make a commitment to move on past that. And then the goal of this phase is to write the script, to create support materials, and organize a reading. So most likely this is where you are now. You got to start writing your script. You got to start refining your script. Now, if you're not writing the script and you just want to be a director, I'll tell you right out of the gate that this is probably not for you. A big component of momentum budget, low budget filmmaking, right, is that as the writer, director, you do a lot of things yourself, right? So you really need to be the writer, director in this situation. So you're going to work on your script. You have your story idea. This is the free phase, right? Some people can draw. So if you can draw, you want to start doing storyboards and concept art. If you can't draw, like I can't draw, but at the very least, you can start scouring the internets and start gathering reference touchstone materials. You can grab images of color palettes. You can grab images of landscapes, of clothing, of certain character types of people, right? Put together a folder and start gathering this reference material. That's free. Of course, if you can draw, a storyboard would be ideal, but at least start gathering reference material. We're building momentum. And then you're going to start thinking about putting on a reading of this script, right? That's going to motivate you to get it done. It's all about setting dates, right? So you're going to set a date for a reading, and that's going to motivate you to get you there. And then by organizing the reading, that's going to set you up for phase 2. All right, so now this is the friend phase. And by organizing the reading, that's going to launch us out of phase 1 into phase 2. So the goals of the friend phase are to gather your team, to meet regularly, and to start managing expectations. The only additional costs in this phase might be you might have to buy lunch or buy coffee. if you're leading the group, you kind of want to be the one who picks up the coffee bill. Just little things like that. It doesn't cost you that much and it matters. And if you just can't afford that, I would organize meetings at your home and then, make dinner, make spaghetti, whatever, make a pot of coffee. Just be a host, be gracious, right? We're building momentum and we don't have any money. So goodwill will go a very long way. Treat people with respect. All right, so now we're into the collaboration phase. So now you're gonna need to assemble your core team. You're gonna have to find somebody, ideally, who wants to be a director of photography. You're gonna want an actor, and then you want somebody who wants to be the producer, who solely wants to schedule and organize. Ideally, this is somebody who's produced before, but if it's somebody who wants to sort of try this out, you just have to make sure that they are somebody who is dedicated to scheduling and organizing, that they're not wanting to take on creative roles. Not that a producer wouldn't have creative input, but you really need somebody to hold things down, right? So you're assembling your team, you're gathering people around you, and now you're going to start being beholden to other people, and this is going to help the momentum. Once you have your team together, you're going to have meetings. You're going to have not a lot of meetings, but you should have regular meetings, and that's what keeps things going, right? I know a lot of people don't like to have meetings, but when you're working with no money, it's definitely a team building exercise. It builds momentum. It gets everybody heading in the same direction, and it really helps to make things a reality, right? Because you talk about it enough and it starts to happen. Right? This is the opposite of thinking about it and nothing happens. Now you're talking about it out loud with other people involved. It's gaining mass, it's gaining momentum, right? So within these meetings, the first thing you're going to do is schedule the reading. The reading is going to start to slowly make the project become a reality. You're going to have to cast, you're going to have to set up a location, you're going to have to schedule little things to make that happen, and those are sort of foreshadowing of what you're going to be doing down the road, right? And then also what it's going to do is it's going to force you to start thinking out loud about the project, right? So very important in this meeting stage is you have to decide with your collaborators what's realistic, right? Because we're talking about DIY low budget, even though it's momentum budget, it's still not going to be a lot of money. So you have to start looking at the script, and if you have 7 locations, it's probably going to have to be 2. If a majority of a scene takes place in a busy mall, maybe it's going to have to be a local grocery store, right? And then as far as how you're going to pull this off, this is going to lead you into the next phase, which is the finance phase, right? You've done the reading, you've had the meetings, you've talked about it, and you're chomping at the bit and you're getting ready to get started. Okay, so now we're into the finance phase. This is the scary part, right? Because you're probably here, low budget, zero budget. There's no such thing as zero budget, right? Even if you're shooting on your iPhone with your friend and roommate, it's always going to cost something, right? And then the goal of this phase are pretty straightforward. You're going to determine your budget, you're going to determine how you're going to raise your budget, and then you're going to set a time frame in which you are going to raise that money, and then you're going to move on. What we're doing is we're building realistic expectations, but we're creating momentum so that this idea will get out of our head and into the world, right? So now finance, how are we going to pay for this, right? Physics 101, the momentum of a moving object increases with mass and speed. We're relying on that in the finance phase, right? Because you just got to keep rolling. Because if you stop and overthink it, it'll never happen. So now you're going to have to determine your budget, right? And most likely that's going to mean friends and family and acquaintances, right? And really, the reality of that is that scales up. Even if you're trying to raise $500,000 or $1 million, who do you know? I have a friend who knows somebody, a friend of a friend, or acquaintance, or my uncle works at such and such. It's just always going to be that way. So you just need to get over it, right? And just figure out how to manage it. So you're going to have to decide with your team what your budget is, right? And I know that's a very broad statement, but what I mean by that is, what's the reality? Are you going to be doing crowdfunding? And if so, you know, what's your outreach of people, friends, and family that'll help you out? It could be $500. Maybe it's $7,000. I think $15,000 is pretty good, but maybe it's $5,000. Whatever it is, you have to be realistic about that number. Then you can start determining what you can do, right? Even if it's $100, that means, all right, I have $25 to give to the people at the coffee shop, $25 for lunch, and everything else I got to do myself. Editing, my camera guy is going to shoot it on the phone, right? I mean, we want to do a little bit better than that, but you know, that's like the baseline, right? So say we get in our heads that we can raise $5,000 in crowdfunding, right? Then you start thinking, what are my priorities? I want this location. All right, I'll put the most money there. Or maybe there's a sort of a name actor that's interested, and if you give them just $500 for the day, you can get them for a couple hours. You want to start determining these things into your budget, right? And again, these are just broad strokes, but you need to start determining what your financial boxes you can work within, right? So if you're just like, I can't deal with this, it's not enough money, but you already have a team in place, you've already done all these readings, right? So you are going to keep going, right? Maybe you're having a bad day, but you got two other people that are going to tell you, look, we got to push through, we've come this far, right? Or maybe one person is like, I just can't deal, and they leave, but there's still 2, 3, 4 of you to pick up the mantle and continue on, right? So it's momentum. And I said this out of the gate, it's not pretty, right? But we're just going to get this done, because at the end of the day, it'll be done, it'll be in the rearview mirror, and you'll have made a film, right? But I'm getting ahead of myself. So once you've decided you're going to crowdfund, you're going to raise the money, worst case scenario is you're going to pay for it yourself, right? I mean, you don't want to do that. You shouldn't do that. We've all done it, right? I mean, look, if you're going to pay $500,000 to go into college debt to be an intern, I don't know, maybe it's worth it to put $5,000 on a credit card to make a movie that'll maybe get you working in movies. Call me crazy, right? But you don't want to do that. But you'll probably do that. But you don't want to spend your own money. So once you determine the amount of money you have, how you're going to get it, you probably want to give yourself 30 days to figure out the money, right? Don't go longer than that, because you could spend 10 years trying to get the money. Give yourself 30 days to either raise it or ask who you have to ask, but have a deadline, and then after that 30 days, that's going to propel us into the final phase, into the finish phase, right? This is very exciting. The home stretch, the momentum, the mass is huge now. Things are moving. You're stressing out, but you're moving, right? So the goals for this phase: schedule shooting dates, make a post schedule, and aim for a festival deadline. So the most important thing is you're going to schedule your shooting dates, right? And that'll be based on giving yourself enough time to raise the money, and then you're going to start locking in the dates. You're going to start locking in people. Now, be prepared, be warned. Things are going to fall through. You might even lose a member of your team, right? Your location that you had locked down might go away, but you got to keep going. You got to keep going. This is, again, another benefit of the team, of the momentum, right? If you're alone, you could get overwhelmed and just say, you know, the heck with it. But, you know, actors will drop out. People will not show up, especially when you're working on tight budgets, right? People are not motivated as much as they are when they're getting a lot of money, right? But you have to stay on track, and just know that these things are going to happen right up to the last minute, right up to when you've finished your last shot and you're packing up the car, because you're probably going to have to bring stuff back yourself. Things are going to go wacky, right? But you're doing it. You're on track, right? So schedule those shooting dates and stick to them. right? So once you have those dates, take a breather, but then you're going to start thinking about post-production, right? So hopefully in your meetings, you've started assembling people that are going to be editing, doing sound design, that's going to be doing music. You need to set very clear dates, right? Where we want to see a first draft by this time, then we want to see a second draft, and then this is when the sound person will be expecting it. If the editor is doing the sound and the music and everything, then you need to set targets for that, right? So this final phase, it's a lot about scheduling and making sort of deadlines, right? It's deadline heavy. Now, I think something that can really help in this final phase is that find a film festival that you want to get into, or that would really be a great match for your project. And then you can start aiming for that date, and then that gives everybody something to focus on, right? You know, if it's February and the deadline for the Freaky Film Festival is July 27th, then you can start working towards that, right? You always want to have a goal. Momentum, right? Momentum filmmaking, right? It's setting it up, knocking it down. All right, so in closing, I want to say that I'm sure 97% of you out there are going to think this is insane and why would you ever want to do this? But for the other 3% of you that I'm talking to, right, it's you feel passionate, you have this burning desire, this burning need to make your story a reality, right? Whether it's a series or a film. And the budget should not be what prohibits you. It should be just another thing that you need to roll over, right? So you have this momentum. Alone, it's hard to push past that barrier of the budget, right? It's always going to be there. But if you have your team, you have your friends, you have your momentum, you got to write the script, you know, you got to have your meetings, you got to do all these things. Then the budget just comes up and you just roll over that instead of having it be this thing that's stopping you, right? I don't want this to seem naive, right? I just want it to seem realistic. You can do it. It's not free. It's not zero budget. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. But at the end of the day, when it's all over and it's 3 months past and you're going to the festivals, you have your film. You did it, right? Whatever it takes. And it won't be as hard the next time. It'll be a lot harder, but for different reasons, right? And you just keep going. And it's just very important. You're gonna learn, like, if you're passionate about this or not. It's all about the long game, right? It's about focusing on the end goal and staying committed with your team, right? It's not the sort of thing that you talk about. You know, a lot of people do it this way, right? But it's not something that's boasted about, right? It's just something that you do what you got to do. So for some people that are confused, I find for myself it just helps to know, oh, okay, it is hard, and that seems a little awkward, but that is what people are doing. They just don't like to talk about it, right? You're financing by hook or by crook. You're moving forward when you have no business moving forward, but you're building that momentum, right? And this method, again, it's DIY. It's not for everybody. And this is by no means any kind of tutorial about how to be in the business of making movies. This is a DIY guide to somebody who wants to make a series or a film, has a burning desire, just doesn't know how to get started, and has the passion, the commitment, the desire to get it done. This is an option that is available to you. You just got to buckle up and go for the ride. Well, as always, I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I love to read the comments. Be sure to check out the merch shop. These t-shirts really help to keep this channel going. And as always, I'm just here to help make sci-fi.